A Royal Christmas in Germany. In Germany, Christmas really glitters. In fact, many of the traditions we associate with the festive season in Britain, the US, and around the world come to us via Germany. The Christmas tree, Santa Claus, Advent calendars, nutcrackers, toys, Christmas markets, and a cornucopia of Christmas confections have their roots in Deutschland. Much of this cultural exchange comes from the tight familial bonds between the British and German royal families. So curl up by the Tannenbaum with a plate of Weihnachtsplätzchen, Christmas cookies, and a mug of Glühwein, or Kinderpunsch, mulled wine with or without the alcohol. And together, let's explore the history of German Christmas traditions and visit the Royal Neues Palais on December 24, 1907, for a spectacularly festive meal with Kaiser Wilhelm and his family. The Christmas tree. One of the oldest and most visible symbols of Christmas, the Christmas tree, or Tannenbaum, dates back to the Saxon midwinter festival of Yule. Evergreen branches, the only things that were still green, were brought inside to cheer people up during the long, cold winter months. A large Yule log was lit on fire, and everyone huddled around it to keep warm and celebrate. These traditions spread wide in Northern Europe and reached Britain with the Anglo-Saxons. The Germanic tribes were Christianized, many at the end of Charlemagne's sword between 700 and 1100 CE. Charlemagne was crowned Emperor of the Romans by the Pope on Christmas Day in the year 800. And for the next 1,000 years, the Holy Roman Empire he forged would control much of modern-day Germany and Central Europe. Now Christian, the people didn't want to give up the cherished festival of Yule that brightened the darkest days of the year. So its traditions were retrimmed as Christian. Yule and other midwinter festivals across Europe were transformed into the celebration of the birth of Christ. Burning Yule logs and decorating homes with evergreens continued to be popular throughout the Middle Ages. In the 16th century, Christians finally found a religious explanation for this favorite tradition by bringing a whole tree into the home and calling it a paradise tree. They were decorated with apples like those that tempted Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. In 1539, the Cathedral of Strasbourg had the first recorded Christmas tree. Martin Luther, the founder of Protestantism, was a big fan of the Tannenbaum. He was the first to add candles to his. In the late 1500s, Hans Greiner, a glassblower in the town of Lauscha, began crafting garlands of glass beads and tin. These first ornaments began to replace the apples on the paradise tree. In 1824, Ernst Anschutz wrote O Tannenbaum, based on a Silesian folk song from the 1500s. In the original, the unchanging evergreen tree is contrasted with the faithlessness of a cheating lover. But the rewritten tune became a popular Christmas carol, though it doesn't actually mention Christmas at all. A few years earlier, in 1818, German composer Franz Xaver Gruber wrote Silent Night. Its message of calm and peace made it a hugely popular carol in the years following the Napoleonic Wars, which killed millions across Europe and brought the Holy Roman Empire crashing down. Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, the German husband of Queen Victoria, is often credited with introducing the Christmas tree to the United Kingdom. But in fact, that honor goes to Victoria's grandmother, Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, the wife of King George III. In 1790, she hosted a party for children, and the centerpiece was a decorated yew tree. Tannenbaums appeared in the homes of the mostly German British royal family from then on. Queen Victoria's mother was German, and she grew up with the tradition. As a child, she wrote in her journal, there were 2 large round tables on which were placed 2 trees hung with sugar ornaments, all the presents being placed around the tree. But her husband, Prince Albert, took the Tannenbaum to the next level. On Christmas Eve, he and Victoria filled a special room at Windsor Castle with Christmas trees. One large tree and several smaller tabletop trees, one for each of their 9 children. The couple would decorate the trees with sugar plums, gingerbread, and candy canes, and place presents underneath them. This engraving of the royal family standing around a decorated Christmas tree was widely published in Britain and America in the 1840s and made the Tannenbaum the must-have Christmas decoration around the globe. To learn more about Queen Victoria's Christmas, check out last year's holiday special, which I will link in the description. In the 1850s, Justus von Liebig invented a technique of mixing silver nitrate into blown glass to give it a shimmering glow. Soon, glassblowers in Lauscha caught on to the technique, and their hand-painted ornaments were purchased by middle-class families all over Europe. In the 1880s, American F.W. Woolworth discovered the baubles during a visit to Germany and made a fortune by importing them to the U.S. While many shops in America start trimming their trees as early as October, it is still tradition in Germany to wait until Christmas Eve to decorate your Tannenbaum. Santa Claus. While early Germanic people were huddled around their Yule logs, they warned each other not to venture outside. It was believed that on the night of the winter solstice, the god Odin rode through the night sky on a sleigh pulled by an 8-legged horse. The all-knowing god judged the good and the evil and was followed by a horde of the souls of the dead, ghostly dogs, fairies, valkyries, and elves. The wild hunt became a popular winter myth throughout Northern Europe. But once Yule became Christmas, the duty of flying through the winter night sky and judging the good and the misbehaved was transferred to another white-bearded old man, Saint Nicholas. He was a 4th century bishop from Turkey who brought 3 butchered children back to life and dropped money for dowries into the socks of 3 impoverished girls so that they could get married rather than be forced into sex work. Saint Nicholas became popular throughout Europe and brings gifts to children on the eve of his Saint's Day, December 6th. Germany's neighbors, the Dutch, call him Sinterklaas, short for Saint Nicholas, which was anglicized to Santa Claus. Several of Odin's characteristics were added to the Santa mythos. Odin's 8-legged horse, Sleipnir, became Santa's 8 reindeer. And just like Odin, Santa likes to hang out with elves. While Saint Nick is generally benevolent, the more sinister characteristics of Odin live on in Germany. Many children also receive visits from Kneidt Ruprecht or Belschnickel, depending on the region. This character is a crotchety man dressed in disheveled brown clothes. He makes children recite prayers or solve math equations. He rewards good children with candy and threatens to spank naughty children, but warns that they still have time to improve their behavior before the arrival of Saint Nick. Children in the Alpine region fear Krampus, a horned and hairy half-goat, half-demon with a long snake-like tongue. He doles out coal and threatens whippings and even kidnap to badly behaved boys and girls on December 5th, the night before the feast of St. Nicholas. On this night, known as Krampusnacht, many towns hold parades where people dress up as Krampus, drink, and cause mischief. Catholic children in Germany still place their freshly polished boots outside of their bedroom door on the night of December 5th, in the hopes that St. Nicholas will put chocolate, candy, or fruit inside. In 1517, Martin Luther published his 95 Theses, or complaints against the Catholic Church, and galvanized the Protestant movement. Some regions of Germany, particularly in the north, followed Luther. Others, especially in the south, remained Catholic. Martin Luther rejected the worship of saints, including St. Nicholas. But he knew that depriving kids of their presents wasn't a good way to win hearts and minds. So instead, he created Christkind, or Christ Child, which brings gifts to the little ones on Christmas Eve, December 25th. Although the character is meant to represent the infant savior, it has come to be depicted as a blonde woman with golden angel wings. Another name for Santa Claus, Kris Kringle, is a poor anglicization of the German Christkind. In recent years, St. Nicholas and Christkind have had competition from Weihnachtsmann, or Christmas Man, a secular, Americanized version of Santa, who flies through the winter night sky, keeping children in their beds, just as Odin did 1,000 years ago. Advent wreaths and calendars. Advent is the season of the Christian liturgical year, which includes the 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas. In 1839, Protestant pastor Johann Heinrich Wiechern, a pioneer in mission work among the poor, observed the December impatience of children expectantly awaiting the arrival of Christmas. To cool them down, he created the first Advent wreath. On a wooden ring, he placed 19 small red tapers and 4 large white candles. Every morning, a small candle was lit, and every Sunday, a large candle. Lighting an Advent wreath continues to be a popular tradition in Germany. The wooden ring has become a wreath of fir branches, and usually only 4 large candles are included. Out of this concept of appeasing excited little ones came the Advent calendar, which was in wide use among German families in the late 1800s. For each day of Advent, a tiny door is opened in the calendar, which contains a small gift or piece of candy. Advent calendars have been exported around the world and come in a variety of themes, but they remain especially popular in Germany. Nutcrackers and toys. German craftspeople also became famous for making another icon of the holiday season, toys. Children throughout the world and across time have always played with whatever they could find, be it rocks, sticks, or scraps of cloth. But in the 1700s, the Enlightenment engendered the idea that children were not merely small adults who needed to pull their weight, but individuals who had a right to learn and play as they grew. Around the same time, the silver and tin mines of the Ore mountain region in Germany began to dry up. Out-of-work miners took to carving wooden toys with tools they once used in the mines. They crafted colorfully painted animals, smoking men, and nutcrackers, which are still associated with German Christmas. Whole families became highly skilled at making toys, which were sold for pennies to merchants who transported them across the mountains and resold them to the toy markets in Nuremberg for a high markup. In the 1800s, craftsmen guilds were formed to ensure minimum pay. Christmas markets. Today, Nuremberg is known for the largest Christkindlmarkt, Weihnachtsmarkt, or Christmas market in the world. But it's not the oldest. That honor goes to Dresden, which held the first true Christmas market in 1434. Though the tradition of gathering together in December in town centers and selling goods and food produced during the previous months of harvest dates back even further. Vienna's first recorded market was in 1298, Munich's in 1310, and Frankfurt's in 1393. Today, traditional German Christmas markets can be found around the world. These markets take on the local flavor of their area, but it is common to find handcrafted wooden toys and gifts, as well as holiday food and drink. Gingerbread and candy canes both come from Germany. I went into depth on them and their journey to Queen Victoria's Christmas display in last year's holiday special. But there are still many mouth-watering German delicacies I haven't yet divulged. Traditional fare at Christmas markets include grilled sausages, which Germans enjoy on almost any occasion, fried fish, and sautéed mushrooms. Sweets include sugared nuts and an abundance of Weihnachtsplätzchen, or Christmas cookies. Traditional varieties include Hausfreunde, apricot preserves sandwiched between buttery almond cookies and dipped in chocolate. Basler Leckerie, tender spiced cookie bars. Liebkuchen, spiced molasses ginger cookies. Haselnuss-Makronen, raspberry hazelnut macaroons. And Kaiserplätzchen, or emperor cookies, jam-filled cookies shaped like stars, hearts, or rounds, just to name a few. Outdoor shopping in December can be chilly, so market-goers warm up with Glühwein, or glow wine, so named because of how you feel when you drink it. Dry red wine is mulled with orange, cinnamon, clove, and anise, and served steaming hot. A shot of rum or amaretto can be added for even more glow. A non-alcoholic version, Kinderpunsch, replaces the wine with apple and cherry juice. Mulled wine is not unique to Germany. It dates back to 2nd century Rome, and variations can be found throughout Europe. Christmas Eve meals at home traditionally center around duck, goose, rabbit, or roast beef, and are accompanied by apple and sausage stuffing, red cabbage, and potato dumplings. The iconic German Christmas dessert is Stollen, a cake filled with nuts and dried fruit. It is shaped with tapered ends and a ridge down the center, symbolizing the baby Jesus in swaddling clothes. While most Germans have cozy meals at home with family, Germany's last Kaiser, or Emperor, Wilhelm II and his family, indulged in a royal Christmas Eve banquet fit for a Kaiser. Kaiser Wilhelm II's Christmas Feast. And now don your best tie and tails, or your most festive evening gown, and your loosest corset, as we travel back to 1907 to enjoy a sumptuous Christmas Eve feast at Neues Palais on the outskirts of Berlin. Our hosts are their Imperial and Royal Majesties, Kaiser Wilhelm II and Kaiserin Augusta Victoria of Germany and Prussia. Wilhelm's mother, Empress Victoria, was the daughter of Queen Victoria of the UK, so the German emperor had a good deal of English influence on his Christmas, just as her parents, Victoria and Albert, had done for her when she was small. Empress Victoria decorated one tree each for her grandchildren. For 2 evenings leading up to Christmas, the family trimmed the trees, which had come from the Kaiser's hunting estate. On the morning of Christmas Eve, Wilhelm would stroll around the gardens of his palace, with his pockets bulging full of gold coins. He would hand out the small treasures to whomever he chanced to meet, be it a gardener, a sentry on duty, or a little schoolboy or girl. The Marshal of the Court recalled, "It was always notable how many gardeners there were out on the paths sweeping invisible leaves on Christmas Eve." When Wilhelm returned to the palace with empty pockets, it was time to serve a magnificent Christmas Eve banquet. The guests included the Imperial family, members of the royal court, and senior military officials. To this glittering assemblage was served Kraftbrühe, Mehlkreis, consommé, creamed rice, a rich and meaty clear stock made from beef or venison bones and vegetables. While consommé was a common opening course on early 20th century dining tables, the addition of a creamy and savory rice pudding was unusual. Karpfen, blau und in Bier. Giant carp, blue and in beer. This was the real showstopper of the emperor's Christmas feast. 4-foot-long fish, complete with their scales, were plunged into hot vinegar and then cooked in a beer and vegetable stock. They were paraded before the guests, while a chemical reaction with the vinegar caused the fish's scales to glow bright blue. The English governess to the imperial children, Anne Topham, remembered how monster carp are brought round boiled in ale, looking plethoric and porpoise-like. Carved and served to the guests, the freshwater fish had a tender, white, mild flavor with no fishy taste, and a smooth texture. Eating carp at Christmas is a very old tradition in Central Europe. In the Middle Ages, Catholics were strictly forbidden from consuming meat during times of fasting, and Christmas Eve was the last day of the fast of Advent. Fish was a popular protein to replace the verboten victuals. Carp's place on the Christmas table was cemented in the 1500s, when ponds in Bohemia's Lake District were stocked with them. Carp became an affordable delicacy, perfect for a holiday meal needed to feed a large number of people. Today, most Germans enjoy goose, but the Christmas carp remains popular in the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Poland. The fish are often bought live in markets and kept in the family's bathtub for a few days. But children have a tendency to get attached to their new aquatic pets and often protest their consumption on Christmas Eve. Kalbsnierenstück mit Gemüse, veal tenderloin with vegetables. The German recipe calls for a tender cut of veal from the back of a young cow. The meat is rolled around veal kidney, which has a unique, earthy, slightly metallic or uric flavor, and a smooth, silky texture. Kidney is an ingredient you either love or hate, but it was highly prized and highly expensive in the Edwardian era, so perfect for the dinner table of an emperor. Wachtelbrustie mit frischen Trüffeln, quail breast with fresh truffles. Quail, a small flying game bird, has been a popular protein in China since 770 BCE and was bred by the ancient Egyptians. In medieval Europe, hawking was a popular upper-class sport in which well-trained birds of prey were used to hunt small animals, often quail. Rifles replaced hawks at Edwardian-era upper-class weekend shooting parties. Kaiser Wilhelm may have shot some of the birds on his own Christmas menu at his hunting lodge at Tierbuda. His quails were flavored with fresh truffles. Black truffles are rare and notoriously difficult to farm. They must be foraged and are one of the most expensive edible mushrooms, at around $2,500 a pound. Poularden, Früchte, Salat. Roast pollards, fruit compotes, and salad. Young hens were served roasted with a sauce made with sweet fruit compotes and salad. In the early 1900s, a simple bed of greens with light dressing was often served at the end of the meat courses to aid digestion and clear the palate for dessert. Mince pies. This Christmas delicacy came straight from the emperor's English mother's childhood. Mince pies have been popular in England since the recipe was brought from the Middle East by Crusaders in the 1000s. A recipe from 1854 includes chopped beef tongue, beef suet, raisins, currants, mace, cloves, nutmeg, brown sugar, apples, lemons, brandy, and orange peel, all chopped small, mixed and baked in a pie crust. The emperor served this nostalgic dish with a flaming brandy sauce, a creamy custard fortified with plenty of brandy and served on fire to thrill and inebriate the dinner guests. Queen Victoria always served mince pie at her Christmas feast. Her gifts to her many family members spread across Europe were another classic English Christmas dessert, plum pudding. Her Majesty's kitchens at Windsor Castle produced 200 of the boiled desserts, draining 24 bottles of brandy and using a mountain of raisins, chopped dried fruit, suet, treacle, breadcrumbs, flour, eggs, and spices. The puddings were stamped with RVI, the Queen's royal insignia, and covered in gold leaf. The gift Willem sent back to his dear old granny was a whole stuffed wild boar's head. This was the centerpiece dish of English royal Christmas, dating back to King Henry II in the 1100s. There was even a Christmas carol that would be sung as the head was carried into the Great Hall and presented. But if some of Victoria's guests weren't too keen on boar's head, the Kaiser also sent 2 giant hampers filled with German cakes and cookies. Prior to his grandmother's death in 1901, Wilhelm served the Christmas pudding she sent him along with the mince pies. But in 1907, the Kaiser wasn't on the best of terms with his cousin, King Edward VII. See the build-up to World War I. So he stopped getting the royal plum pudding packages. Wilhelm's guests didn't mind, though. Anne Topham recalled, "The German gentlemen were not at all fond of plum pudding, but they liked mince pies, especially the brandy sauce part." Mulled. This dessert brought the focus back on German tradition. Bread is thinly sliced and layered in a crystal bowl. After each layer, a sauce of poppy seeds boiled in milk custard, flavored with nuts, dried fruit, vanilla, cinnamon, and rum, is poured so that the bread is well soaked. The dish is served cold and decorated with nuts and fruit. Christmas tables in the Silesia region of modern-day Poland, the Czech Republic, and Germany are not complete without this dessert, which is called makówki there. But the pudding has long been favored in Brandenburg and Berlin as well. Käsestangen, cheese straws. These savory, twisted pastries baked with cheese broke up the sweet offerings. Nachtisch, dessert. At the end of the decadent meal, the Kaiser would gleefully order the doors to the shell hall flung open. In the already stunning ballroom, which glittered with stones, shells, marble, and quartz encrusted into the walls and floor, the guests would marvel at dozens of Christmas trees, one for each of them, hung with glass baubles and tinsel and lit by candles. Next to each tree was a small table, with each guest's gifts from the emperor. These included furs or jewelry for the ladies, and vases, silverware, or bronze busts of the emperor for the gentlemen. A large plate of nuts, cakes, and chocolates accompanied each table, recalled the governess. And those gentlemen who have to return to Berlin early may presently be seen, aided by footmen, pouring their nuts and gingerbread into large brown paper bags, which they carry away under one arm, for all the world like children from a Sunday school treat. This procession of gray-haired generals and officers in uniform going off like schoolboys with their booty seems to afford the emperor much pleasure. What does your Christmas feast look like? Will you try any of Kaiser Wilhelm's recipes or any other traditional German foods? Let me know in the comments. Last year I made Queen Victoria's roast and Yorkshire puddings, and they were a hit. This year I'm keen to bake up some Weihnachtsplätzchen. Wherever you are and whatever you celebrate, I wish you a jolly holiday season and a very happy new year. A big thank you goes to my friend Jake Smith of royalmenus.com. Check out his fabulous collection documenting what royals of the past ate on their most important occasions. Watch out for my December 28th video, which will be another holiday tradition, a big royal pub-style history quiz. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment your thoughts, and check out my other royal history videos. If you really want to help, please consider supporting me on Patreon. A link is in the description. Thank you for watching.